Have you been leaning a little too hard on your husband, your partner, your grown kids, your friends, or even your grandkids to keep you emotionally steady? This could be a little bit of a tough one today, my friends. In this episode of Taking Back Happy, we're going to be talking about how midlife is the perfect time to stop outsourcing our peace and start building inner strength, rooted in God and supported by a healthier relationship with yourself. Let's talk about how to reclaim your resilience, stop expecting others to do the emotional heavy lifting for you, and become the steady one that you can actually count on. Hi, friends. Welcome to Taking Back Happy. I'm your host, Gina Granville, God's girl, retired homeschool mom of 4, empty nester, Gigi, essential oil and exercise enthusiast, Christian life coach, and someone who's taken back her own happy. I know many of you feel exactly like me in these midlife years, a sort of loss of direction, but way too young and vibrant to sit on the porch and just watch life go by. What if you could reimagine your life, finding deep joy, renewed passion, and purpose, and plenty of adventure in these midlife years? If you're ready to rediscover God's joy and purpose in this season of life, throw on those walking shoes, pop in those earbuds, and join me right here as we take back happy together. Hey friends, and welcome to Taking Back Happy. Today we're going to be talking about our emotional well-being, our emotional resilience, strength, how we show up in the world. So we're going to look at 3 main points. The first one is we're going to check who's actually holding that weight. Is it us? Is it someone else? That brings me to my second point. If it's someone else and it's not actually us, we are never going to be fulfilled by them. But the good news, and my third point, is we can make a small shift and we can build a more dependable us. We don't have to be relying on somebody else. So let's do a little self-check. Who is doing the heavy lifting when it comes to your emotions and your emotional well-being? Are you depending on others to make you feel secure, loved, or whole? That is a recipe for disaster, because it's only good until it's not. When I first got divorced, I spent a lot of time depending on my kids, depending on them to help me feel those things, to feel secure or feel loved or feel even having purpose, In my defense, I honestly didn't know any better. But especially when we first started having weekends where my kids would be staying with my ex and they wouldn't be home. And I was totally freaking out when that first happened because it was the first time I'd ever been apart from them. And I really hated it and it stressed me out. And I remember just really depending on my daughter during that time. She was 17 and the boys were a little bit younger. And I was always looking to her for, okay, what are we going to do this weekend? What are we going to do while the boys are gone? And looking back in retrospect, I feel really bad about that because no one should be putting all that pressure on a 17-year-old to be supporting their mom and giving their mom mental stability, basically. So what are some signs you're emotionally leaning too hard on others? I think the first one is you might feel a little lost or anxious when someone isn't available. So in the story I was telling a minute ago, if my daughter had plans with her friends and I was oh my gosh, so we're not going to go out. We're not going to go shopping. We're not going to go to a movie, and I would be kind of spiraling out of control there. And that's the thing. If you're depending on them so much that your mood kind of tanks, if that person doesn't text you back or they have other plans or they have other things going on, you might be a little too dependent on them. Another sign might be if you expect others to fix your feelings. And I put that in air quotes, fix your feelings. You might feel like it's your partner's job, or you might feel like it's your grown kid's job, or You might feel like it's even your friend's job to make you feel happy again after a rough day. But guess what? It's not. I'm all about emotional support. I mean, I feel like emotional support is good. But if we're depending on someone else to make us feel needed or wanted or loved, that is a major problem. Another sign might be if you feel like unworthy or unloved, if you're not getting that praise and that affirmation and that person, trying to hype you up. Whenever we outsource our value to someone else, instead of looking to God and like who he says we are, we know we have inherent value because God says we have inherent value. And it doesn't matter if one person says that or 10 people say that or 100 people say that. If God says it and we believe it, that's what counts. But I think the biggest problem overall when we outsource or we let someone else carry the weight of our emotions or emotional strength is that what happens when they don't show up the way that we need them to. I like the book, The 5 Love Languages, and I feel like it's a good tool. It's like something you could use in your marriage or with your kids. In a close relationship like that, I think it can be good to share the way that you feel the most loved and what makes you feel appreciated and that sort of thing. But ultimately, we can't change other people. And when we tend to have really high expectations, there's a lot of frustration that can be involved with that. Whether we like it or not, people are not always going to show up the way that we need. And that's why we don't want them holding the weight of our emotion. Which brings me to the second point. We really will never be fulfilled by someone else. Even the most supportive spouse or child can't carry your soul. In Psalm 62:5, it says, "Yes, my soul find rest in God. My hope comes from him." If we're going to be outsourcing our emotions, that's where we want to be outsourcing them. We want to outsource them to God. We want to receive his peace. We want to read his word. We want to find joy in the things that he finds joy in. And some of those things are just even delighting in us. We are the apple of his eye. This kind of makes me think about my little experience I had last year on dating apps. First of all, they felt so weird because of the whole swipe thing. I mean, we're literally looking at people and deciding, do I want to talk to this person? Do I not want to talk to this person? Basically based on how they look. But then also going a little deeper, you're like reading their descriptions. You're reading the things that they do and they want to do and what they enjoy. And then you're just thinking about that as far as how it would fit into your life. Oh yeah, I like him. He likes to get out and do physical things like I do. Oh, I don't like him because he's a couch potato or whatever the thing would be. But all in all, it's like you're looking for that fulfillment in someone else that you haven't even met yet. And they're doing the same thing with you. So I thought it was a really kind of wild experience. I know a lot of people meet their person on dating apps, but I don't know that they're necessarily for me. I think we have to be careful because we really are designed to connect with other people, whether that be a partner or our grown kids or with friends. But we're not really meant to depend on them like for our peace and for our joy and for keeping us emotionally stable. So that's where the paradox comes in. So what if we could just shift slightly and build a dependable you? If I was going to build a more dependable me, I would probably practice like practical mindset tools like journaling, prayer, self-coaching, all those type of things. One of the things that's been really life-changing for me is doing thought work. Taking a thought that doesn't add any value to my life or a thought that was harmful to my life or a thought that's not furthering the things that I want to further and actually changing that up. One of my favorite thoughts is you get to decide. What if we took that thought and we applied it to like everything we've been talking about today? What if we applied it to our worthiness? What if we applied it to how secure we feel? What if we applied it to feeling whole and stable and emotionally strong? When I hadn't been in life mentoring school very long, I heard Dr. Edie speaking one day, and she was talking about her birthday and what she was going to do for her birthday. And I started thinking about that. And when I first heard her say it, I was a little shocked, and I was like, oh no, that can't be true. But I always thought about my birthday as like, okay, it's my birthday. I wonder what people are going to do for me. I wonder if we're going to do something fun. And if they don't, it's okay because, it won't bother me. But I did always want them to do something fun for me, right? So she had said for her birthday, she decided she was going to make it a wonderful day, and she was going to make her birthday awesome. And she was going to do all those things. And then if somebody else wanted to join in, they could. But she was going to be responsible for making that an awesome day. And I was like, wow, that just like blew my mind. You mean we get to decide what kind of birthday we're going to have? We get to decide if we want to get cake, or if we want to go shopping, or if we want to call and invite a friend to do something? When we decide that, we're taking the responsibility. We're taking the responsibility for our happiness. We're taking the responsibility for our worthiness. We're taking the responsibility to making it a day that is the kind of day we'd really want. Even if nobody else comes and brings us a card or does something for us, we still can have a really beautiful day. It turns out that we need people because we need people. And we need people because we love them and things like that. But we don't necessarily need them to bring us emotional stability and emotional resilience, because we get to decide that. And that is just life-changing. We can support ourselves emotionally by deciding, and we can also support ourselves by turning to God. We can turn to God through prayer. We can turn to God through trusting what His Word says. In Philippians 4:13, it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. All means all, my friends. I love that so much, because when we're turning to God for the things that we need, like peace and joy and things like that, that we've been depending on other people for, and when we decide, like, this is how I want to show up in the world, instead of waiting for someone else to come to our rescue, we're not only setting ourselves free, we're setting those people free. Like my daughter, that I talked about earlier, when I was constantly depending on her for those weekends when those boys were gone, that was not what she should have been doing. She should have just been out living her life. Now, she was my bestie. I mean, she's still one of my besties, right? But I just needed to be a bestie with her instead of being a dependent person on top of all that. So when we are looking at taking back our happy, that's also going to include taking responsibility for our own emotional strength and resilience, and not depending on others, not having these ridiculous expectations, not basing our worthiness on that, but just deciding how we want to show up and deciding how we want things to look for ourselves, and just seeking the Lord's face and seeking His guidance when we're trying to figure all of this out. We don't have to have it all figured out. We just have to take it one day at a time, one step at a time, one decision at a time. You got this, my taken back happy friend. We're going to be one lean, mean, fighting machine. Okay, we're going to be one lean, mean, emotional strength machine. And we're going to free ourselves and free others in the process. If this podcast blessed and encouraged you today, I'd love for you to share it with your friends. You can take a screenshot and share it in your stories, but make sure you tag me at Gina Granville so we can connect. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you join my Taking Back Happy Facebook group. I'll meet you back here soon, and we'll continue taking back happy together.